In this video, we are going to talk about the memory mechanism in CLAUDE and how can you leverage it to let CLAUDE remember your instruction and do what you want every single time. The way we are going to do that is to go through the CLAUDE official document, but obviously we are not going to go through all of them. I'm going to highlight important parts and talk about some of the experience that how I use CLAUDE.md to make CLAUDE do a better job. So basically, there are two ways to allow CLAUDE to carry knowledge across different sections, different conversations. The first way to do it is through a CLAUDE.md file. It is a text file where you put your instruction in to tell CLAUDE what you want. The next one is a newer mechanism called auto memory. So basically, CLAUDE write instruction to itself based on your feedback. From my personal experience, I find that instruction put into CLAUDE.md file is tends to be more reliable. So in this video, we are going to focus on the first mechanism. Okay, let's dive into it. First, what instruction do we want to put into CLAUDE.md file? So the way I see it is there are two categories. The first category is to put instruction or information specific to your project. For example, project architecture, coding standard, workflows, things that specific to your project, you want to put it there. It is a lot of effort to create a CLAUDE.md file. So CLAUDE is nice to provide a init command to help you create an initial CLAUDE.md file to save you time from doing that. So let's take a look at it. Okay, the CLAUDE.md file is generated. Let's take a look. So in here, it tells us this is an backend API project for blocking platform. It gives us some command we can use in this project. And then it talks about the project architecture. This is a monorepo. Everything lives under source directory. And mentions some of the convention as well. So it's a pretty good starting point, and all you have to do is just run the /init command. But remember that CLAUDE could make mistakes, so when you go through the file, remember to really check them, and if you see anything is wrong or doesn't make sense, you can just delete it, change it yourself, or ask CLAUDE to fix it for you. So the next question is when to add something to CLAUDE.md file. There are a few instructions for it, but basically whenever you see CLAUDE make the same mistake twice, or it does something annoy you again and again, then you should consider adding an instruction to CLAUDE.md to prevent that from happening again. Here is one of the instructions that I use frequently. So if we go to CLAUDE.md file, you can see there's a reference code section. So basically, it tells CLAUDE whenever a file, a function, or a specific location in the code is mentioned, provide a clickable link. What it means is, okay, here's the example. If CLAUDE mentions something in the code, it needs to provide a clickable link for me so I can go navigate to that location very easily. See how easy it is for me to navigate to different part of the code and trace the logic. Before I add this instruction, CLAUDE sometime will just provide it as a text format. So what I have to do is to search for the file and then go to the correct line number, trying to locate the block of code. That takes a lot of time rather than just have a clickable link here. You can go there directly. Okay, let's go back to the documentation. We just went through when to add stuff to CLAUDE.md, and the clickable link is just one of the um, thing that fit my personal workflow. I'm sure that everyone has different workflow, different preferences. So by putting those information into CLAUDE.md, you get a much better result and response from Claude and save you lots of time. Next, where to put CLAUDE.md files. And yes, you can have multiple CLAUDE.md files, and each lives in different locations, representing different scopes. The most common one is the project level CLAUDE.md. It tells Claude about a specific project, instruction just for that specific project. So anything here only apply to one project. So if your project has its own convention or specific build commands, this is where you want to put them. One thing to keep in mind is the project level CLAUDE.md is usually version controller, meaning that it is a team shared instruction for the project. Everyone on the team can see it and change it. But what if you want something just for your local environment setup? Say you like to test your app on a different port than anyone else on the team. Well, in that case, you want to add custom instruction to the local MD. Anything here is just for you. It is not version controlled, and you can think of it like just a private node to code. So everything we have mentioned so far only apply to one specific project, but in practice, there's a good chance you're working with multiple projects. Maybe a front-end project, a back-end, and a couple of shared library projects as well. Now, what if you want your instruction to apply to all of them? Say, for example, every variable needs to be named in camel case. So we obviously don't want to copy the instruction into every single project level CLAUDE.md. Here, the solution is to use a user level instructions. In your home directory, you can have a CLAUDE.md file. Anything you put in here gets loaded into every Claude section, every Claude conversation, and automatically applies across all your projects. So if you have any coding style, personal preference you want to apply to all your projects, put it here. Now we know where to put our instructions. Next, let's talk about how to actually write good instructions. There are a couple of tips to write better instructions. For example, we should aim to write specific instruction. The instruction that we have should be concrete enough so that code can verify it itself. For example, instead of telling code to test the changes, we should be more specific, say 1 npm test. Instead of telling code to keep everything organized, we should probably say, okay, for API handler, you should put it in this specific folder. It is interesting that the last bullet point in the documentation happens to me a lot. In the project that I work on, we split the logic across different layers. For example, we have a service layer, business logic layer, and also data layer as well. If I just tell code to implement a feature, it will usually get it right after a few iterations itself. But And then when you try the feature out, it actually works. But the problem is when you look at the code, you will find that code tends to take shortcuts. For example, it once tried to put all the logic into just one layer. I mean, it works, but your application clearly get harder to maintain over time if you let code do it that way. So my suggestion was exactly what the documentation suggests here. I go to CLAUDE.md and put in instructions to tell Claude what layers we have and where each type of logic needs to go. For example, to handle API requests, the logic should go to /API. For business logic, such as data validations, it should go to the service level. And then for data operation, everything should live under the /data directory. Once I put it in there, the result was pretty amazing because code started to do exactly what I want. The second tip is keep your code instruction consistent. So if two of your instruction contradict each other, code does not know what to do, and you might just pick one at random. So look over the CLAUDE.md file every once in a while and clear out anything outdated or conflicting. And remember that you don't have to do it manually. For me, I just ask Claude to scan through all code instructions for me and tell me if there's anything inconsistent. Then I will review it and have Claude fix it for me. The last tip is about size, the size of the CLAUDE.md file. Keep in mind that CLAUDE.md get loaded into the context window at the start of every section, so it is up tokens right along your conversation with Claude. So if you put too much stuff into it, you won't have much space left for doing the real work. The guideline here is to aim for under 200 lines per CLAUDE.md file. This is not a restriction. You can certainly go over 200, but remember the longer it gets, the more context it eats up, and the less consistent code actually can follow the instruction. The last thing I want to touch on is agents.md. If you have worked with other coding agents like Codex from OpenAI, then you might already familiar with their agents.md. Keep in mind that Claude use CLAUDE.md, not agents.md. So if you're working with multiple agents, one of the things you can do is go to the CLAUDE.md file and then import your instruction from agents.md file. That way you can get both agents to go through the same instruction and you don't have to manually keep two copies of instructions. After the import statement, you can also have Claude-specific instruction if there's anything unique to Claude. Okay, that's all I want to go through about CLAUDE.md and how can we use it to get Claude perform better. See you in the next one.